Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Wieme, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Wieme. Today, we have a real treat. My friend, my client, Camille Hanson, an amazing investment realtor, is going to join us and give us some really freaking great insight on how we can shift our mindset to attract more wealth. Camille, I am so excited that you're here, and I can't wait for everybody to meet you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and have loved everything I've learned from you, Lachelle, through your podcast and through your Spiral Up not only the Becoming Retreat, but the Spiral Up program.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're literally one of my favorite humans. And if I can get a chance to have other people get to know who you are and how you serve people, like, it is such a privilege to do that. And I got to tell you, girl, like, one of the things that really impressed me when we first met, which I'm going to just back up this funny story, you guys, like the first time that we ever actually met in person, we were at a store. And I was buying furniture for my first investment property, and I was like buying them out.
Yes. It's a great deal.
It was great, right? And then like you were signed up for one of my workshops like a few days later. I'm like, oh, hey, it was just so funny. So it's just kind of a cool like way that this whole conversation gets to come full circle, right? Like we met because I was, in this investment way. And I've learned so much and been so much inspired by you. And I just got to tell you, like, you used to be a teacher for a long time.
23 years.
23 years. And then you just decided like, heck, I am going to totally pivot my passion and I am going to become a realtor. Like, tell us a little bit about what prompted that bold, courageous decision, because that takes a lot of guts.
I just got to where I knew I was ready for a change. And at the time I was 45 years old and I went, okay, well, I don't see myself teaching for another 20 years. If I wait 10 years, I'm 55. I don't want to start a new career at 55. I want to start now. Met with my financial advisor and he was like, kind of went through things. He's like, well, you don't need permission from me. If you've got it figured out, go for it. So I jumped at the opportunity. I didn't have any spare money, borrowed money from a friend to take my real estate classes. And I was like, when I get my first deal, I'll pay you back. Yeah. So that's what I did. And I just knew I was already passionate about it. I had gotten into investing in real estate already. And school got out in May and I just 2 feet head first, whatever you want to call it, I jumped in. And within about 2 months, I turned in my resignation letter and I knew this was a path for me.
And I mean, I think that one of the things that I love about you is that we resonate on this is that we do not allow ourselves to stay victims to our circumstances, right? Like we figure out a way to rise above it. And you're like, I didn't have any extra money, but I figured it out. And that's what we do is we just freaking figure it out, right? Yeah. And I think that like one of the things, if I recall from past conversations, that was a big aha moment for you is that you're like, okay, I have a couple of teenage boys that I'm going to have to put through college. And I am not going to be able to do that as a single mom in, my role as a teacher.
Absolutely. I had one heading off to college. I had 2 more, right behind kind of thing. And I went, how am I going to be able to help them? How am I going to go from here? And so when I jumped, there was not a plan B. Like I did not give myself that option. Like this is going to work.
Yeah. And then you figure it out. And I got to just say that like, what's really fun is that I'm going to guess, tell us a little bit about your income bracket as a realtor, even just in your first couple of years versus what you were making as a teacher, because I want to help people understand, you guys, that where you're at does not need to be where you have to stay. And that I love possibilities. Like that's one of my favorite words, right? And so tell us a little bit about the contrast between your teaching salary and the potential that you have created for yourself in this space.
Absolutely. So it's interesting, about the same time, I was getting ready to send my kid off to college and filling out the FAFSA forms. And I'm like, oh my word, we'd been going through COVID. So there was no doing tutoring, working sporting events, all the extra stuff I did for an extra income before. The opportunities were gone. So in filling out the FAFSA, I made like $54,000 in 2020 was the year that I was putting the information in for. And I don't know. I had learned how to just make do, but it wasn't the life I wanted to provide for my kids. And when I jumped into real estate, you get for a few deals, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. If I can just get, $4 million in sales this year, that would be phenomenal. And I remember my broker at the time said, well, why just 4? And I was like, oh, yeah, why? And I mean, my first year, I was 6 figures in real estate, and it grew and grew from there.
Yeah.
Michelle up the other day, I'm like, oh my, I have taxes to pay. And I kind of freaked out, but yet I was like, whatever. Like, this means I did really good last year. So it's just kind of going with it. Like, okay. And my kids have all been on board and super encouraging. And we have been able to do so many more things than I could provide for them when I was teaching.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that you came to me, asking. You're like, Lachelle, like, I'm having some success, like I'm doing a good job, but I'm starting to see that there's more out there for me. Like, I'm capable of even more. I want more freedom to spend with the boys before they leave. I want more, ability to travel the world. I want to invest in more properties. And that's one of the things, because when we have those desires for better, it's so much fun to lock arms with people like you who see the vision and you're like, all right, help me get there.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I figured out the real estate part, but then I was like, hey, I'm running my own business. What am I doing? Lachelle, help me and give me some guidance. Where I know where I want to go. How do I get there?
Yeah. And so one of the things that you have been doing and we've been able to incorporate into your plan is this whole idea of investing, and investing specifically in real estate. And, I've already mentioned a little bit on this podcast that I, bought my first investment property just over a year ago, and, it's paying for itself. I have a lake home that I am renting to nurses that work at the hospital that I help out occasionally. And it's been amazing. It's such a huge, just aha for me that I get to create wealth in other ways. I get to be really resourceful and creative and just watch money work for me. And that's one of the things that you and I hit off fairly early as well, because you also have been investing. And even just in the last 6 months since we came back from Costa Rica, you've already added a couple more properties to your portfolio. So tell us a little bit about why you have chosen to diversify your income through investments. Why should we consider using real estate to gain more wealth?
Personally, I had, when I got started teaching, okay, put some money into a Roth, put it into these different investment things, and it was what you were supposed to do. And that's what my parents had done. And okay, so I started doing that. And I had this love for real estate, and I had bought a cabin up north and realized, the fun of being able to renovate that and how much that property grew in value in a very short time.
Yeah.
And kind of gave me the itch to start an investment property. And I did find one in St. Charles where I live. And it was just one of those where I was still teaching, but I found a duplex for $112,000. And it was somebody that, hey, they're going through a divorce, had to liquefy the deals are out there. So I bought the place, and just having one of the 2 units rented out already took care of making the monthly payment. And I saw the cash flow. I was like, this is awesome. And so once I got that little taste, and, if I needed to, it could help me out at the time. But I just kind of was watching it grow. And then I added more properties, and then I got partners. People wanted to invest, but they didn't quite have the courage to just go in and do it alone. Camille, how'd you do this? Would you be interested? Absolutely. So I ended up buying a 5-plex with somebody just this last year. Since Costa Rica, I bought another duplex with a partner that I have other properties with. And then a new partnership had formed, and it was some friends that they really wanted to get into investing, but they were a little worried about the whole having renters, different things. So I had the opportunity where there was a commercial business, a salon, and the owner was like, there's so many law changes right now, and I'm having to pay unemployment insurance. Now we're going to have this new sick leave. They were all W-2 employees. It's just adding up. The numbers aren't making sense for me. And I went, oh, well, I kind of shared that you could start renting the chairs and do it that way. He was like, no, I want out. I don't want to manage people anymore. I'm like, okay, well, I'm interested. So some friends joined me in this purchase, and we bought a salon it's been the go-to salon in town, and very nice place. Each of the gals stayed on. They now pay me a chair rental. Now I've got a couple more rooms that are getting ready to be rented out, hopefully for Botox in one of them, possibly massage in another. So it has just fallen into place. Like, you just open yourself and things will happen. They'll come your way. It's all about the networking and putting yourself out there to say, hey, I'm ready. Whatever God's got in store, the universe, what it may be, I'm ready. My energy is there. I've got this.
And that's one of the things that we've talked about a lot, both, inside of Spiral Up and our conversations one-on-one, is really just keeping yourself at the vibration of the solution, right? And knowing that when you align yourself with the frequency of the solution, things are going to pop in. And this very conversation that Camille and I are having might be your answer to your prayers when you're like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. And so it's just really cool when we can keep ourselves in this higher vibration instead of realigning ourselves with the problem over and over again. And we just be like, okay, stuff works out for me, and I am just going to continue to take inspired action, and I'm going to expect that it's going to work out. And then all of a sudden, like, these opportunities just come in. I mean, you've shared a couple of stories with me, and I don't want to like go down this rabbit hole quite yet, but I do want you to share with people, like, you had a deal fall through just recently.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because it's a really good example of this concept.
Okay. And there's even a follow-up that I haven't even shared with you. So I had a deal that I had some people buying a property out in the country. I do a lot of nice properties out in the country, higher level. And they called and they were like, we have to cancel our purchase. I'm like, oh my, oh, this hurts. And, went through the repercussions, you're going to lose your earnest money, those different things. And so it was one of those where I was like, it is what it is. But I was not going to let myself spiral down. There was no way. Like, it's frustrating, but it is what it is.
Right.
Not even an hour later, I got a call for a listing worth twice as much as this listing, a listing that I really wanted, absolutely gorgeous. And it was like, oh, of course, because I stayed in that high frequency, it came to me. Now, the couple hours later that night, I got a call back from that initial couple that said we need to cancel. I had already talked to the listing realtor, filled out the cancellation. She was going to talk to the family, get everything signed. Well, my buyers called me back and they said, we had a family meeting. Don't let them sign the paper. We still want the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I ended up staying in that high vibration, and look at that. Like, it just unfolds. I get this gigantic listing, plus they go through with their purchase, and it just works out.
It just works out. I mean, it's always this or something better, right?
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you are in real estate, if you are in coaching, if you're in whatever, if you can just remind yourself this or something better and stay in that higher vibrations, it does work out. And then there was another example that you gave me, and I can't remember all the details right now off the top of my head, but it was something to the sense of you ended up, something fell through, and then within like a couple of hours, you had like multiple $1 million worth of like business.
Yes. That was early this year. It was just like one of those where, once again, you're like, But then bam, 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 like you get a call. Well, I actually would like this, but you're going to need to sell my house. And it just the trickle effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So real estate's it is a roller coaster, but it's so darn fun, and kind of getting back to the investment side of it.
Yeah.
Like I told you earlier, this is my retirement too. I mean, I have my other investments, but if you diversify, most of these properties I've purchased will be paid off or paid down incredibly by the time I'm ready to say, okay, I'm ready to go to live in the Bahamas. And that is, I mean, the constant income that will keep coming from them. I've learned in short order too, like my time is better spent not doing this little fix up here, not doing the painting here. I hire somebody. Never in my teaching life would I have done that. And now I'm like, nope, it makes more sense money wise for me to spend my money working in real estate, working in finding more investment properties, helping my clients, than spending time painting a two-bedroom apartment.
Exactly. I mean, it's really just staying in our zone of genius. And that was one of the things that it was really kind of cool too, since we were working together, that we decided to really shift your marketing angle. And instead of staying into the space of the starter home, which is still people that you want to serve, like
absolutely
not excluding those people, but oftentimes people don't realize in marketing that you want to market towards your ideal, like dream client. And then anybody else is going to want to step up into that, or they're still going to just reach out and say, hey, Camille, like, do you still help people who are just starting out? Even though they feel like, have they not said that to you? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like you have leveled up in like the kind of people that you're attracting, because we've decided to shift that marketing angle to the people who not only want to invest and they have income to be able to invest in different properties, but those people are also more likely to buy a home that is at a higher price point than that starter home also. So you're basically giving yourself the opportunity to work with people who are at a place where they're buying higher level, higher price point properties, so that your commission is doubled, tripled. But you're also creating this instance where those people are wanting to continue to diversify their income, because just like tattoos, once you own a property, you're going to want another one.
Yes.
And so it's just like, just that little shift in that has allowed you to make a lot more money, just because we're starting to do the same thing, but just marketing to people who are spending a little bit more money. Absolutely. And that has just allowed for you to have that more leverage to invest in more properties. And it's just really freaking cool how it all works out the way that I expected to. Yes. And then to have like people be like, yeah, that totally did. That totally worked. And so when it comes to investing, and we're kind of like going back to this, that oftentimes people, once they buy a property, they want another one and another one. And you also mentioned that same thing too. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how that works, because I feel like most people are like, oh my gosh, that makes sense, but I don't know how to even make my first property a reality. And then once you get the first property, how the heck do you start to invest in another one? So kind of break that down a little bit so that make it doable for the rest of us.
Well, my very first property, it was one of those where I was like, okay, I'm getting my tax rebate or, refund at this time. Plus I have some investment money they put in that I can take out, and it's just money I put in, so it wouldn't be taxed on it. I'm going to use that to buy this first investment property. And getting the first one is the toughest. After that, the banks are like, oh, well, you own this and this. Like, I could go to the bank any day pretty much and say, hey, I found a new property I'd like, and they can look at the value of my properties, and instantly I'm able to get the credit, get the loan, whatever I might need. And partnering is amazing because you've got one more person to bounce things off of. You're both putting in, for most investment properties, you're putting 25% down. Well, you don't have to come up with the whole 25% then, which allows you to save money for even the next property. So, and then the money you're making on that first initial property, that also helps generate money for that next down payment. So
what you're saying is, and I just want to like make this, break this down to people who are not familiar with this concept. I used to be a Dave Ramsey coach for a
Yeah.
really long time. So like debt is bad. And that was a belief that I had. And then I started to surround myself with more millionaires who really helped me to understand that debt is really just leveraging other people's capital. And as long as you have an intention and you are very wise in the way that you do it, debt is not bad. Debt is leveraging other people's capital. And so I just want to remind people that Dave Ramsey, I love him. So shout out to Dave. But he's going to speak to the masses who may or may not be responsible for their money. They may have inquired a lot of credit card debt. My husband and I don't have debt other than our mortgage, right? And so it's not, and yeah, it would be great to be able to pay off that mortgage. But then you think about it, the interest rate that we're paying on that mortgage is going to be way less than the interest rate that we would earn from something else. And so really thinking about it in terms of how can I best utilize that money in a way that's going to make the most sense in the long run, right?
Absolutely.
And so it doesn't make the most sense for me to pay off our private residence. It makes sense to take that money if we have extra and put it towards something else that can make more money. And I think that makes people nervous, right? It's like, okay, so we have our first investment property, and I'll tell you guys, like, I'll be just straight up real with you. So we ended up getting a HELOC loan for the house that we purchased, the investment property. What that means is that we took the equity from our private residence and we were able to essentially pay cash for this investment property. So the investment property is paid off. And then what we do is we use the rent from our renters to pay essentially the loan, the HELOC loan that we took off on our house. So that's how we're working on that. Now, because the rent that I'm getting is actually more than what it's costing us to pay down this loan, we're at this decision point where, like, do we take that extra money and do we put it towards that loan to pay that off? Or do we take that extra money and put it towards a new investment? So I'm just really curious, Camille, on like what your expertise says about that.
Well, I too was a big Dave Ramsey fan. And at the time it was great. It helped me pay off some debt that I had. Yep. But I have learned too, where my home right now is at a 2.75% interest rate.
Yeah.
And I was still in the Dave Ramsey mindset. And when I had extra money, I was paying it towards that. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Yeah. Because one of my investment properties, I have an interest rate of 7.9, where I could have had more cash to put down on that home. And that would have been a better use of my money.
Right.
Now, I'm not worried about interest rates. 7.9, I don't care. I more than make up for that with the money coming in. That's why investment properties are my favorite. It's all about a numbers game.
Right.
Whether you flip the house, use it as an Airbnb, use it as a long-term rental, if it's a commercial building, it's all about the numbers. If the numbers don't make sense, you walk away.
Right.
I mean, it's so easy. Buying personal homes is different. There's an emotion attached. There is I'm seeing the kids grow up there. I'm seeing myself with grandkids there someday.
Yep.
It's completely different.
Right.
Investment properties, it's all about numbers. And if the numbers work, you jump. How high can you jump? How fast can you jump? You make it happen.
And one of the things that I've realized by having several realtors as clients is that the long-term interest rates really scared a lot of people off and the market slowed down because of it. But one of the things that I've realized by working with you guys is that when the interest rates are high, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad time to buy, because you're going to be less likely to get in a bidding war and you're not going to pay over market value for that property. You may even pay under market value for that property. And then as soon as the interest rates bounce back down, you refinance. So you actually had a better deal in the long run. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. Everyone just says you're dating the rate.
Yes.
Buy the house, date the rate, because whenever that rate comes down, and I have people as a realtor where I see what they're locking in at. I had somebody this last fall that locked in at 8%. Right now I've got people at 5.9. They're locking in 6.1. And depending on when this podcast comes out, it might be different even.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I'm always talking to my lenders. Okay, these people locked in at this. When's a good time for them to refinance? I've got this locked in at this.
Right.
And it's about the relationships.
Yeah.
So everyone takes care of everyone.
It absolutely. So it's just a matter of like looking at it from a different perspective, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that I love doing with you is we push each other to dream a little bit. And I remember like because you came to the Becoming Experience workshop or retreat, I guess, in Costa Rica in September of 2023. And it was an amazing experience, was it not? Like,
It was
and
absolutely
you're coming with
amazing,
me to the Dominican
wonderful.
Republic in the fall of
Yeah.
this year. And I'm so excited because that's really something when, 80% or more of the people who show up at my retreats have been to one of them. It tells me that I'm doing something right. And so it's
It's a
just
game
really
changer.
fun to just have that. But I remember us leaving the little town of Santa Teresa. And you and I were like, oh my gosh, there's a property for sale. There's a property for sale. And I remember being on my Delta flight with my Wi-Fi and like looking up how much
Yes.
properties are in Costa Rica. And I think you did the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, okay, like like I grew
The
up
life of a
on a farm.
dream.
I grew up on a farm. My mom and dad, like they poured everything they had to back into the farm. They didn't even own their own property until I was 18 years old. They rented the farmhouse that we lived on.
Wow.
So like for me to think, oh my gosh, I already own 2 properties.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, why not own a beachfront villa? Why not? And I'm like, who is this girl? Where did this life come from? But it's really just that's what the whole Becoming Experience retreat's about, is stepping into who you want to be and then really bathing in the life of that version of you and really allowing brain science to help your brain think that, well, this is already who I am. And I start to see things differently and make decisions differently based on that version of me rather than the scarcity, scared, non-risk taking version of me. Right. And so what's so crazy is that, you and I have had these conversations over and over again. And I'm just going to tell you guys the story because it's just so cool when you think about the people that you surround yourself with. And so Camille, thanks for being one of mine. Right. But like, so I'm on Facebook one day, maybe like a month ago. And Christy, if you're listening to this, like, hey girl. So I'm on Facebook and I was scrolling through and there is a Facebook group for rent by owner of anesthesia providers, nurse anesthetists and nurse anesthesiologists. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is renting out this beach home in Orange Beach, Alabama, and it's freaking amazing. It's beautiful. And I was like, screw it. I really am curious how she did that. So I reached out to her. I don't know her. I friend requested her. I'm like, hey, Christy, my name is Lachelle, blah, blah, blah. Like, I saw your house. This is something that like, you guys, like, this is like on a scale from 0 to 10 and how much I believe this is possible for me, like 3 years ago, it would have been like a 2. Maybe a 1. And now I'm just like, why not? Why couldn't this be, part of my life?
Yes.
So I reached out to her. I'm like, I'm really curious about your journey. Like, would you mind, having a conversation? I'd love to know a little bit more about, how you made this happen and any details you have for me. We became friends. I am speaking at her retreat in a couple weeks in Orange Beach, Alabama. And she like hooked me up with, her lender. She hooked me up with like the way that they're doing things. And now I'm researching properties on the coast, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, and it's like I just expect that it's going to work out, and it's so fascinating because again, it's just that vibration of like I just know with expectation that if this is a desire God has placed in my heart, that this is for me. And I'm just going to continue to take aligned action, which is like reaching out to somebody like Christy, talking to Camille, like, oh, well, I wonder what Zillow has for the coast, in the Carolinas and Florida and Alabama. I wonder if like those are just tiny little aligned actions that I'm taking. So I have a conversation with somebody really close to me and they're like, oh, well, we're thinking about selling this property. And after we pay off this, we're going to have this much left over. I would consider investing in that with you. Here's my down payment.
Yes.
Why not? Right. And it's just like, holy shit, like this is actually possibly, going to happen. And it's going to be fun to go back to this episode and be like, hey, you guys, like we're having my next retreat at my beachfront property in, North Carolina. And so it's really cool, you guys, to start to think about like, what does your dream life look like? Like if you didn't have anything holding you back, time and money were not an object, like what would that life look like? And Camille, like you did that. You have been doing that as a teacher and now as a realtor making, multiple 6 figures a year. And I mean, it's impressive, like what you've been able to do and the lifestyle that you have and what you just expect to happen and how it's going to work out, and staying in the vibrations of not only helping yourself create legacy wealth for your children, but helping other people do the same, not only by partnering with them, but teaching them. And that's one of the things, the projects that we've been working on, is you creating instructions and lessons on teaching people how to invest and how to utilize and leverage, real estate as part of your thing. I mean, you guys got to think about this. It's not just the 403B and the pension. It's the 403B and the pension and property.
And
right. And so like kind of going back to, and I want to make this feel real to you guys. Okay. So Camille has an Airbnb now. She has a commercial property. She has a couple of duplexes with long-term renters. Okay. So, and she has a cabin as also another Airbnb. So you have lots of different like diversifications. And if you guys have questions on like which of those is great to start with, or how do you get started, like Camille is definitely somebody that I want you guys to reach out to. But when I've been looking at some of the properties on the coast that I am seriously considering, you guys, like the one that I was really looking at already for 2024 has secured income from renting that exceeds what the yearly cost is. So you got to be thinking about this. And that was one of the things Christy mentioned. She's like, Lachelle, if I can keep my property full May, June, July, and August, it covers all of our expenses. It covers my insurance. It covers the property management company. It covers the mortgage. It covers everything that we need. So anything above that is going to be income. And then you can decide at that time, do you want to reinvest in another property? Do you want to use it to pay down the principal on the one that you have? But it's like, you don't even realize, especially when it comes to Airbnbs, VRBOs, those types of things. And one of the things that Christy pointed out to me is that the property that she has, they have a management property company that works in that area, and they just charge them 15% of what that week's rent was. And so they have skin in the game, because when the house is rented, they get paid. And so they're out there actively trying to get the properties filled as well. And it's just, she doesn't have to worry about it. She doesn't live in the area. Like, she just knows it's being taken care of. Like, this doesn't have to be hard. One of the things that I teach my clients all the time is, what if it was easy? What would you do? It doesn't have to be a pipe dream. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be these tiny little pieces of the puzzle. And I think that one of the biggest things that I did was talk to people like Camille, talk to people like Christy, and figure out, like, rather than it being just this big abstract idea, what are the details? What do I need to have down? Where do I get that, what could I do to get that down payment? What could the rent look like if it was a short-term rental? What could the property management look like? In fact, a lot of these beach rentals, they come furnished. They come already decorated. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. And so, you guys, I want to inspire you to look at things. And the thing is, Camille, one of also the other things that I've learned is that go to, a person like Camille who has expertise in investments, and she can help connect you with the right people, because realtors have connectors and connections all over the place with rental property managers. You guys have connections with lenders. And that's one of the things that you and I have been working on with your marketing and sales strategy is really leveraging the connections that you have. Absolutely. And making yourself that key person to help make all of the pieces of the puzzle come together for people.
Yeah. 100%. And those connections, it unfolds so many new avenues and opportunities.
So I think one of the things that you've really shared with me in just this inspiring conversation is that, yes, there are risks.
Oh, absolutely.
But what do you have to say about that?
If God puts it in your heart, it's a passion, and it's a nudge. Take it seriously. It might just be a little trickle of thought at the beginning. Pray on it. And if it's meant to be, God will help you find that way. For me, like, that nudge was there, I just put it out in the universe. Like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to see. This is who I want to become. Hiring a person like Lachelle going, hey, I need you to be my coach. This is where I want to go with life. What are the steps I need to take to make this business mine? I mean, initially I was overwhelmed. Like, I'm doing this all myself. Holy buckets. Met with Lachelle, met with one of her experts, and voila, in a week, I hired somebody to manage my Airbnb for me. No more stress there. Hired an assistant to take care of all the little details with real estate. I was able to use my time to meet with my clients, to work with my clients, to get listings, the things that I was good at and I needed to do. And I let somebody else take the responsibility of the other things.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even plan on going this way in this conversation, but I have goosebumps because I've watched you. Like, I've watched you make more money because you have the courage and confidence to delegate, to hire and delegate. I've watched you make more money because you've now had the courage and confidence to market to higher income bracket people who are able to invest in properties 2, 3, and above times what you were used to selling.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been able to watch you reinvest over and over again in properties yourself and to help other people create that dream life. And it's just like, I've watched you really own the lifestyle that you want and have you, create the work-life balance that you have wanted, because it's really easy to let the tail wag the dog in real estate.
It is.
And it's been so much fun watching you create the time and the financial freedom that you wanted, and to take what you already had, which was successful, and to take it to the next level, and then watch you go to the next level and the next level. Like, I'm like, girl, it's been such a privilege to work with you and to watch you continue to apply the things that I know to be true. And oh my goodness, I do. I love you guys. So love you, Camille, so much. And you guys need to connect with Camille. And so if you're thinking like, how would I make this happen? Honestly, the next inspired action is get information, start answering the questions that you have. What would I have to do? What would be the next step? Who would I have to talk to? Where would I have to go next? These are the questions that somebody like Camille can answer for you. And it makes it less of a crazy wackadoo dream that other people live. And it makes it more of a tangible reality for you, because then you know that the next step is, and then the next step is, and the next step is. And then before you know it, like, I think we were talking about this, like, you look at your dream board.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, like, this is real. Like, this actually happened.
Well, and I got to say too, if you have kids, it is the biggest gift to them. For my boys to see their mom succeed like this and to take part and take ownership, the rental properties, hey, they're helping. Like, my youngest son, he takes care of the lawn care at every single one of the properties. He's making big bank by doing this for me. My other ones, it's like, okay, I need new furniture moved into here. I need a demo done in this room. I mean, they all do their part to make this successful, and they could see the numbers. They see that it works. I'm really open with them, and they've learned a ton.
Girl, you're such a great mom. You're such a great inspiration, and you're an amazing realtor. So thank you for joining us today on the Spiral Up podcast. You guys, we will have all of Camille's information inside of the show notes so that you can reach out to her personally, get her advice, be on the lookout for her educational material that's going to be coming out to teach you exactly what steps that you need to do to make this a reality. And just to remember to keep dreaming, because it can happen if you open yourself up to it and connect to the people who can make it happen. So bye, everybody. Camille, is there anything else that you want to say? Anything else?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lachelle. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody. So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to im-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.